शिव गंगाधराय जटाधराय शिव जटाधराय जटाधराय शिव जटाधराय गंगाधराय शिव गंगाधराय गंगाधराय शिव गंगाधराय हरे हरे बोले नमः शिवाय ओम नमः शिवाय ओम नमः शिवाय हरे हरे बोले नमः शिवाय ओम नमः शिवाय ओम नमः शिवाय हरे हरे बोले नमः शिवाय सोमेश्वराय शिव सोमेश्वराय सोमेश्वराय शिव सोमेश्वराय भूतेश्वराय शिव भूतेश्वराय भूतेश्वराय शिव भूतेश्वराय सोमेश्वराय शिव सोमेश्वराय सोमेश्वराय शिव सोमेश्वराय हरे हरे बोले नमः शिवाय ओम नमः शिवाय ओम नमः शिवाय हरे हरे बोले नमः शिवाय ओम नमः शिवाय ओम नमः शिवाय हरे हरे बोले नमः शिवाय नीलकंठाय शिव नीलकंठाय नीलकंठाय शिव नीलकंठाय नागेश्वराय शिव नागेश्वराय नागेश्वराय शिव नागेश्वराय नीलकंठाय शिव नीलकंठाय हरे हरे बोले नमः शिवाय ओम नमः शिवाय ओम नमः शिवाय हरे हरे बोले नमः शिवाय ओम नमः शिवाय हरे हरे बोले नमः शिवाय श्रीमन्नारायण नारायण नारायण श्रीमन्नारायण नारायण नारायण भजमन नारायण 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 भजमन नारायण 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 श्रीमन नारायण 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 श्रीमन नारायण 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 भजमन नारायण 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 भजमन नारायण 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 श्रीमन नारायण 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 श्रीमन नारायण 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 भजमन नारायण 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 भजमन नारायण 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 श्रीमन नारायण 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 भजमन नारायण 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 Narayan, 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 Shriman Narayan, 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 Shriman Narayan, 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 Shriman Narayan, 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 Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Welcome to Satsang. So beautiful to be all together as we just, on the eve of the solstice, this very special time of year of going in, going in, going in, going in. The weather makes us go like this anyway, but the season is a season of going in, finding that light inside. So, welcome to all of you. We start satsang every night with, excuse me, a question from one of our family members joining us online. We are gathering together not only here, but also in rooms and homes and offices and whatnot all over the world with our family. It's one of the great assets of technology, one of the assets of these devices. So we start usually with a question that one of our online family sends in, and then we open it up to any question that anyone here might have. So we'll start with one of these, and then anyone here with a question, there's a microphone in the center. Just do not be shy. Feel free to come up and ask whatever question, but share your name, share where you're from, and then ask your question. Nice question. What is the difference between selfishness and self-love? You know, it's such a tragedy in our culture that we even have these questions. Because selfishness and self-love are kind of opposites, but we've become so indoctrinated, tragically, by a culture that basically teaches us not to think about ourselves, and that tells us that our only value as human beings is in what are we producing for others? What is the external show of the hours of our day? How are we being used? And of course, on the one hand, that's just a misunderstanding, a kind of co-opting of actually a very deep spiritual truth, which is we all are here as tools in the hands of the divine, as channels, as vehicles, as vessels of the flow of the divine on earth for each other. And this isn't just the Hindu way. It's not just in Sanatan Dharma. One of my favorite teachings is the prayer of St. Francis of Assisi that says, "O Lord, let me be an instrument of your grace, an instrument of your mercy. Where there is hatred, let me bring love. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is injury, pardon. Like, let me be that instrument." So on the one hand, yes, we are here as instruments, as tools, as channels, as vehicles of love, of healing. Of love, of healing for others. And the highest purpose, the highest goal of our life is God realization, self-realization. And those are not two words, by the way. I always say them at the same time because some people think of it as self-realization, some think of it as God realization. But it's actually the same thing. When I realize God, I realize the self. When I realize the self, I realize God. So whatever way works for you, you can say it either way, it doesn't matter. But that's the highest point of our life, the highest goal. When that happens, then I automatically become that light in the darkness, become the one who brings hope where there's despair, bring the love to the hatred. But along the way, we all have work to do. We call it sadhana, our spiritual practice. Now, that's the aspect of us as in service of the world. Most of us are raised and groomed to believe that anything we are doing that is not directly producing, productive, doing for others is considered selfish. And it's a really big tragedy because it would be like saying having a meal is selfish. It would be like saying having a cup of tea or coffee in the morning is selfish if you're someone who likes to have that to kind of jumpstart the energy of your day. It would be like saying sleep is selfish. Oh, you're a doctor? Well, like, how dare you sleep? I mean, there are sick people. Oh, you're a teacher? How dare you sleep? There are poor students who need an education. Well, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to know that without sleep, without food, you're not going to be a very good doctor. You're not going to be a very good teacher. You're not actually going to be of service to anyone. So the idea that anything that we do for ourselves is selfish is something that we need to break right away. It's not just a myth, it's a harmful myth. It's a self-destructive myth. And it's a myth that ends up, tragically, leading so many of us into illnesses, ailments, beds in which we are of zero use to anyone. But we've squeezed ourselves and pushed ourselves so hard that we end up exhausted, sick, etc. Taking care of your physical needs, and we'll come to actually self-love in a moment because it's separate, but I'm going to weave us into there. Taking care of your physical needs is the most important thing that you can do for the world. If I'm strong, if I'm awake, if I'm cognitively present, only then am I able to do something. If my brain's not functioning because I'm dehydrated, I'm hungry, I'm underslept, I'm stressed. Maybe there's not enough money and my kids need to go to school. Maybe a family member is sick. Maybe my roof leaks and the rainy season is coming. If my needs are not taken care of on that level, it's like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. A very, very famous philosopher, Abraham Maslow, put together this kind of pyramid structure of our needs. And in order to be able to dedicate ourselves to service of others, to higher pursuits, whether it's the arts, whether it's culture, highest pursuit, our spiritual pursuit, well, we first we need to know where the next meal is coming from. This is just basic common sense. It's basic psychology. It's how we function. If I'm hungry and I have no idea where I'm going to get any food, I'm not going to be a very good candidate for a meditation class. It doesn't mean that my next meal needs to be 5-star. It doesn't mean it needs to be at a Michelin restaurant. It doesn't mean that it needs to have 18 items on my thali and be, we don't need to go into the excess. But we need to be taken care of. And this is something that most of us, we intuitively understand that. But then go into our spiritual needs. If spiritually I'm not healthy, if I'm not taking time for my meditation, for my prayer, for my connection, for my internal rebooting of my system, I may be physically present. I may be able to physically pick you up if you fall to the ground in front of me. But I'm likely not going to be of much more use than that. If you think about our cell phones, well, if they're not charged, no matter all the apps, all the technology, everything that's in them, if there's no battery, they're useless. These lights, these cameras, the fans in the summertime, they work because they're plugged into an electrical source. If they are not plugged in, they could be the most expensive, best equipment in the world, and it would be useless. It's got to be plugged in. So do we. I could have the best skills, the best abilities, the best education. I could be well slept, well fed. But if I'm not grounded and anchored, and I'm being triggered by everything, and I'm reactive, and I'm angry, and I'm judgmental, and I'm full of ego, and I'm not prepared to listen to anyone, I'm essentially useless in terms of my role as a vehicle of healing, of love, of light in the world. So taking care of yourself, physical self, mental self, emotional self, spiritual self, not only is it not selfish, but it's actually a prerequisite to be able to serve in a powerful way. Now lastly, self-love? Because that was the specific question, but we had to go on a bit of a journey to get there. Is self-love selfish? The way that a lot of us, sadly, are taught that self-love manifests, it's not selfish, but I don't think it is of great benefit. So most of the ways that we are taught to express our self-love for each other, our self-love for ourselves, are things like, nothing is I am this body. If my expression of self-love is just to buy myself something, it's saying I'm lacking in some way. That new pair of shoes is going to make me feel beautiful, then I'll be okay. New haircut, then I'll like myself. Again, nothing wrong with a haircut, nothing wrong with a pair of shoes, but we are just perpetuating this myth, this harmful myth, that what's wrong is the way my hair looks, or what's wrong is that I don't have a new pair of shoes, and that a solution to my boredom, depression, anxiety, misery is going to be to feel beautiful in a new pair of shoes or some new clothes or in a new haircut. Self-love is much deeper. Self-love is about whatever you accomplish, anywhere on the spectrum, from a lot to zero. However you look, from beautiful and put together to stark naked or sloppy, the entire spectrum has nothing to do with actually who you are. Who you are is full, is whole, is complete, is perfect, is divine. Even if you never did anything, including brush your hair or take a shower, let alone actually accomplish something, we should still love ourselves, even in those circumstances. And to pit our self-love against, I've worked really hard today, I deserve a hot bath, or I deserve a new pair of shoes or a haircut, is just perpetuating the cycle that, you deserve it because. Or, that person's been giving you a really hard time, they've been really obnoxious to you, go get a facial and feel better. Well, again, nothing wrong with a facial. But it's not the solution to the internal sense of agony. The solution is knowing that actually yourself is divine. And so self-love, real self-love, is love of the capital S self. It's love of the divine self. So real self-love is love that says, you're not your body. You're not your accomplishments. It's love that tells us over and over again, no, you don't deserve that because you put in a hard day. You deserve that because who you are is inherently deserving. Who you are is inherently worthy. You want a new pair of shoes? Get a new pair of shoes, not because you worked hard, but then go a step deeper. Why do I need a physical reward to feel worthy? to feel lovable, to feel okay. And real self-love keeps taking us deeper and deeper and deeper into an embrace of the very fullness, the very perfection of who we are. And in that embrace, there is no judgment. There is no resentment. There is no misery on that level. And then we automatically start sharing and giving and being that vehicle, being that vessel, being that channel. Because that's the truth of who we are. And we don't need to do something to prove it or to earn it or deserve it. So self-love is all about truth. It's all about awareness. It has nothing to do with selfishness. Self-love is the most natural outcome of a deep spiritual practice. You can't help but love the self, because the self is inseparable from the divine. Yeah, great question. Other questions? Any question that anyone has? Yes, please come. Just one sec, he'll turn on the mic for you.
What I understand, you're talking about self-realization, Aham Brahmasmi, the God is within us, Atma and Paramatma. But we in India, this is old Sanatan principle, we in India are worshipping sort of deity worship, either a statue, to personify a particular type of God. Mm-hmm. How does this deity worship gel with this Sanatan principle?
Great. So under Sanatan Dharma, there are many, many, many different threads, lineages, sampradayas, paramparas, ways of thinking. We won't go into all of them. We will simply categorize them for the very short sake of the answer into two categories: dualists and non-dualists. And again, this is an oversimplification. There are many, many more nuanced versions of each of these. But specifically, since you've asked about deity worship on the one hand, and this idea of Aham Brahmasmi, it's not even God is in me. It's there is nothing but God. My highest truth is divinity. And there are two different ways of thinking, two different ways of worshiping, I would say. In the Bhakti tradition, and in all of the dualist traditions, the experience of love is used as the energy of awakening. It's not a tradition that emphasizes God is separate than you, you are separate from God. It's not that. But it's a tradition that has recognized and realized the power of love. Now, if I say to you, I want you to focus on loving the infinite, formless, nameless, existence, consciousness, bliss. Now that's a hard task. It's really hard to generate love in our hearts for something that is nameless, formless, inconceivable, it's a lot easier if I say, okay, I want you to find love in your heart for Krishna, or for Ram, or for Ganeshji, or for Jesus Christ, or for me, it doesn't matter what religion it is. But it's a lot easier. As human beings with brains that we have as they are, it's just a lot easier to love in that way. So the bhakti traditions, the dualist traditions, are traditions that are rooted in loving the divine through form. The term deity worship is a misnomer. We are not worshiping, well, yes, we are worshiping the divine. We are actually worshiping the divine in the image. But typically when people talk about deities, we think much more about statues. We're not worshipers of statues. We are worshipers of the divine. And the images remind us. It's like, you look like you might be a grandpa. Are you a grandfather? Are you a grandfather? Okay. So if your grandchildren make you paintings, and if your grandchildren are very young, and they make basically really bad paintings, because they're young, but they paint and they scribble and the colors all kind of go together and it doesn't look like anything, I would still bet that you frame them and you put them up on the wall. Or at bare minimum, that you stick it up on the fridge with a magnet. Now, a random person would come and say, why in the world? Like, that is the ugliest piece of nothing I've ever seen, scribbles I've ever seen. Why do you have that framed on your wall? Because you love the artist, and the artwork in your mind and heart makes you think of the artist. Every time you see that painting, you think of your grandchild. Now, do you actually love the scribbles themselves? No, of course not. If it had been made by somebody other than your grandchild, would you frame it and put it on the wall? Of course not. But what you're loving is not the image itself. It's the artist. And the image reminds you of the artist. And so when you see the image, love builds in your heart. When we see images of Bhagwan Krishna, of Bhagwan Ram, of Shankar Bhagwan, of Ganeshji, of Hanumanji, of Durga, whomever it may be, it's not a loving of the image as in like, oh, what a great carving. Or, oh, God, I wonder where they got that wonderful, paint for the eye makeup. Or, oh, nicely sewn clothes. It's never that. It's, we love the divine, and this image evokes in us that love. Being in love feels really good. Being in love is the way for most of us in our lives to experience an expansion of self. In love, we go from being two to being one. And not only in romantic or sexual love, even, if you are looking at your grandchildren or holding them on your lap or even thinking about them, there's not two, there's one. There's a merging, there's a melting together in love that's exquisite. That's the path of the dualist tradition. Through singing, through kirtan, through puja, we are just going to love God. And that love is going to be the path that takes us into total union, from two to one. Then ultimately, like Mirabai, quite literally, an ultimate merging into the divine. Now, the non-dualists, most specifically in Advaita Vedanta, say there are not two. There is nothing but Brahman. There is nothing but this supreme reality, this Sat, truth, existence, Chit, consciousness, Anand bliss. That is the nature, not even of the universe, because the universe is just a part of the whole, because there's one universe, there's other universes. But it is the nature of all that there is. But it also goes a very interesting step beyond that, that says everything that we are seeing, the entire aspect of creation, is happening through us, in us, as consciousness. Much in the way that the dreams that we have in the night seem very real, but they're all happening actually in us. So we are like the field in, quantum mechanics. We are like that. Consciousness is the field in which everything is happening, but ultimately there is nothing but the field. You can also think about it like waves in the ocean. If you thought about the ocean as infinite, one ocean, one infinite ocean, no land masses. The waves in the ocean would be how we would consider ourselves, forms. Illusory, in that the highest truth at every moment of that waveform is ocean. It's never anything but ocean. It's all happening in the ocean. Everything that seems to be happening is nothing but ocean. There is nothing other than the ocean. That's the Advaita path. And there are just two different paths. It's not about reconciling them so much as allowing all of it to coexist. But I'll tell you something really interesting. I know a lot of people who follow the path of Advaita, path of Jnana Yoga, that path of wisdom, knowledge, inquiry. And the ones I know, it's very few, but the ones I know who I would actually say are really enlightened, who are not just studious, but actually enlightened, are also bhakts. Even as masters of Advaita, gurus of Advaita, living in that oneness. In the enlightened state, there is spaciousness for the experience of oneness, the knowledge of oneness, the awareness of oneness, and they're actually devotees of God. And I know that sounds contradictory. And I don't have a logical way of explaining it. I'm just sharing my experience. Over the 30 years almost I've been here, the very few I've met in that lineage who just vibrate with the energy of enlightenment, the energy of awakening, are ones who I know for a fact, because I've heard them speak about it, are also devotees of God. And there is spaciousness and presence in the awareness that, yes, it is all Brahman. there is also spaciousness for a devotion to God. Yeah. Other questions? Yes, of course.
एक सवाल है जी आपसे कि गुरु बिना गति नहीं है। जो लोग बिना गुरु तो क्या गति नहीं पा सकते या पा सकते हैं? जो माँ दुर्गा, नारायण, भगवान शिव इन्हां दे उपासक करके क्या गति नहीं पा सकते? गुरु ही गति दिला सकते हो, गुरु तो कोई गति नहीं मिल सकती।
For those of you who don't speak Hindi, I'll translate his question. Do we really need a guru? Is the guru the only one who can give us that enlightenment, that connection, that freedom? Can't God, in all of these forms that we worship the divine, like can't God himself, herself, itself, themselves give us that? Do we really need a guru? In theory, in principle, we don't need a guru. In theory, in principle, we are going simply into the truth of who we are. We are going closer and closer to true self, to God. We don't actually, in principle, need anything, anyone other than ourselves and the presence of God. However, theory does not always bear out in experience. There are some throughout history who have showed us that that theory is correct and the principle is correct. We have examples of spontaneous spiritual awakening experiences. They are very few, they're very far between, and they are in beings who, it's very clear, are here on earth with a very unique karmic package. For the rest of us, we have ego, we have ignorance as just part of the human package, but most of us also have ignorance, illusion, false identifications. Most of us have been raised by parents, raised in families, raised in societies that are not enlightened, in which we were told things like, if you want to be a good boy, clean up your room. If you want to be a good girl, study hard for your exam and do well. That like our very goodness is based upon what we do, how we achieve. Most of us have been raised hearing things like, oh, she's the smart one, she's the pretty one. We get identifications based on our skills, our abilities, our looks, what we can do. And we develop self-identities based on these patterns, based on this false identification. And we then carry that into our adult life. We suffer. We feel jealousy. We feel anger. We feel competition. We feel resentment. We can't get along. We can't get along with other family members. We can't get along in an office. We can't get along in a community. If you say to most people, what is the biggest problem you face in your life? A huge percentage of people will point their finger at another person. Very few people will say, my biggest problem is my own mind. When actually that is our biggest problem. But most of us, if I say to you, okay, take 30 seconds and think about what is the greatest obstacle that you face in life? The first thing that's going to appear in most of our minds is that one person who just drives us bonkers or is thwarting us or harming us in some way. If I could just get that person off my case, if I could just... Well, that arises out of false identification, out of ignorance. I'm not saying that person isn't annoying, but the idea that they are the reason you are suffering is born out of ego, it's born out of ignorance, and we all have it. And this is why we need a guru. Because the guru is the one, otherwise our minds are so good. They always convince us we are right, unless we do something truly abysmal. Otherwise, we are, and if we do, well, then we still had every right to do it. We were provoked. It was someone else's fault. Our minds are constantly telling us we are the right ones. We are the smart ones. We are the ones doing, everybody else is the problem. Our minds are the ones constantly telling us that what we need in order to be happy is this, is that, I need that. The guru is the one who removes all that ignorance. The guru is the one who removes that darkness of ignorance, brings light, shows us the light of who we are. And for the vast majority of us, if we don't have a guru, we're going to spend our lives in ignorance and illusion. We may think that we've learned a lot, can take a lot of courses, read a lot of books, memorize a lot of things, even give a lot of good speeches. But when we're not really clear on the inside, our own ignorance, our own rationalizations, they kill us. So from what I've seen, the guru is really necessary unless you happen to be one of those rare people who was raised by enlightened parents in an enlightened culture that never falsely indoctrinated you in any way. Unless you're carrying, if you're not carrying in baggage from a past life around some types of sanskaras that are preventing you from attaining freedom. But that's a tall order. And it doesn't pertain to most of us. So, for most of us, having a guru is not only necessary, but is the fastest, easiest, clearest way. I mean, I cannot for the life of me imagine why someone would not want a guru. It would be like saying, I'll tell you what, I'm going to drop you out of an airplane in a random city of a random country. You've been blindfolded. You have no idea where you are. You've never seen a map before. And I'm going to give you this car. You have no idea what it is. You've never driven it. I'm going to drop you in there. And then I'm going to offer to give you a manual. I'm going to offer to teach you how this car works. I'm going to offer to show you where you are, how to operate the car, how to go where you want to go, how to understand where you want to go. It would be like us saying, forget it, I'll figure this thing out. Well, eventually you might. But you're going to spend a lot of time driving that thing around in circles. You're going to spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to make it go, make it stop, what this real thing does. And even once you can figure out how to make it go, you're not even going to know where you want to go. So the idea of not taking advantage of having someone who can guide us, show us, clear the ignorance, clear the darkness, bring the light, I can't even imagine what the upside would be of that. Because the guru, by the way, a good guru, a real guru, is not going to coddle you. The guru does not spoon feed you or digest your food for you. The Guru is pointing the way, showing the light. You've got to do the work. And it's not easy at all. Being a disciple of a real Guru, not easy. Because the Guru is the one who's going to constantly say, that's ignorance, that's ego, that's wrong. Look here, not there. But if we're able to allow ourselves to surrender and to see that light that's being shown, तो फिर जीवन का मार्गदर्शन मिलता है. आत्मदर्शन के साथ साथ मार्गदर्शन भी मिलता है. So we get everything. Who I am and what to do and where to go. Yeah, it's a win-win situation for not only me, but everyone I've ever met who has a real Guru. Yeah, great question. Have a beautiful rest of your evening, everyone. A beautiful morning and day to our family joining us from all over the world online. And I look so forward to seeing all of you tomorrow. And if we didn't get to your question tonight, so sorry, we will get to it tomorrow. And so